Hey everyone, welcome to the channel for another Escape From Tarkov video. This time, I'm taking a look at the Hideout and some of the most useful items you can craft using the Hideout in the early to mid game, from levels 1 to 20. The Hideout is incredibly useful if you put some effort into upgrading it, and while it may just seem like a huge investment with little initial payoff, once you have a good understanding of what the best crafting recipes are, what they're used for, and how to take advantage of them, the Hideout starts to print money pretty effectively. On top of making you money, Hideout crafting is actually one of the best ways to quickly gather items you need for several quests throughout the game, which is something I think is often overlooked by players. Crafted items are counted as found in raid, which means they can be sold on the market and turned in for quest objectives, so you can focus on other things while the Hideout crafts up the final items you need to turn in for a quest. In this video, I'll be focusing on items that can be crafted from levels 1 to 20. By this point, you can upgrade all Hideout modules to at least level 2 if you've been keeping up on it, and level 2 is where the good crafting starts on some of the Hideout upgrades. If you need a bit more information on the upgrading process, I'll link the Hideout page from the official Tarkov wiki in the description, which has a full breakdown of upgrade requirements and costs for each module. So with that intro out of the way, let's get right into it, starting with the module I find to be the most useful throughout the early and mid game, the Workbench. The Workbench is an incredibly useful hideout upgrade if you're keen on doing some crafting, with a great mix of items ranging from weapons to grenades, ammo, and high demand barter items needed to upgrade the hideout and do quests. Even late game, when it's fully upgraded, the Workbench is seriously amazing because it allows you to craft top tier ammo that is otherwise difficult to get a hold of. To start this off, let's go over some of the best level 1 crafting recipes for the Workbench. First up, we have the Blue Kite Gunpowder, which can be crafted using 70 545 PS rounds, which are sold for dirt cheap at proper level 1 after finishing the delivery from the past quest. This is a very cheap crafting recipe and can be used for a lot of things. The gunpowder is used in some other crafting, you can trade it for an ammo case at mechanic, and you also need some of them for a therapist quest in the mid game. This is a very cheap and effective way to get the gunpowder for any of these reasons, and you can also sell these on the market to make a little bit of extra profit off your PS rounds. Next up at the level 1 Workbench, there's 4 very useful crafting recipes for electronics hardware that you'll need for a ton of different things throughout the game. First, you can craft 8 wires out of 2 power cords, which is a very simple one that has a lot of uses. Wires are needed for at least one quest, several hideout upgrades, and multiple crafting recipes, including one to make hoses. You can also flip these wires for a good profit, at least until most other players no longer need them. On the flip side of that one, you can make 2 power cords out of 2 T-plugs, 2 wires, and 1 blue tape. These cords are needed for a quest and some hideout upgrades, plus you can technically use 2 wires to craft 2 cords, then 2 cords to craft 8 wires, which can be a useful loop. Next, you can craft 8 capacitors from 1 power supply and 1 red screwdriver. Like the wires, these are needed for a quest and hideout upgrades and crafting, so it's a multi-purpose option. The fourth of these hardware recipes lets you make 2 printed circuit boards out of 1 black screwdriver and 1 DVD drive. These circuit boards are needed for multiple mechanic quests, hideout upgrades, and are used in some barter trades. All 4 of these crafting recipes are very useful, and I use them this wipe to quickly get through mechanics farming and signal quests without having to dig through computers and extract with otherwise low value items. The last crafting option at the level 1 Workbench that I really like is the VOG-25 craft, using 5 grenade fuses and 5 40mm grenades. This produces 8 VOG-25 short fuse grenades, which are incredibly useful and quite valuable. To be honest, I use this one about 50-50 to profit and to use the grenades myself. You can sometimes flip them for 20,000 or more on the market, and the items needed to craft them have become surprisingly common to find in raid. Next up, let's take a look at the level 2 Workbench, which can be upgraded at level 20 after getting mechanic to level 2. First, let's start with some very useful items you can craft to help with quest completions. Using 1 black screwdriver and 1 power bank, you can craft 2 rechargeable batteries. These batteries are needed for a mechanic quest, and they're also used to trade for an ADAR from Skier. Power banks are quite cheap most of the time, so this is a pretty decent way to make 2 ADARs from a 1-slot loot item. Next, you can produce 5 car batteries using 1 military battery and a multi-tool. 4 of these batteries are needed for a therapist quest, so you can knock that one out in 1 crafting run if you want. They're also used in some hideout upgrades, so it's a pretty useful option if you can find a military battery. Another useful recipe at the Workbench level 2 is the green gunpowder, which can can be crafted with 2 M67 frag grenades and 1 smoke grenade. The green gunpowder is used in some of the top tier ammo recipes, and it's often incredibly valuable on the flea market because of this. Once you unlock the M67 at Peacekeeper, this is a priority crafting recipe for me so I can start making good ammo. Speaking of good ammo, at the level 2 workbench, you can start crafting 9x39 SP6 ammo using 1 green gunpowder, 60 7.62 HP rounds, and a Xeno foam. If you like the VSS or AS Val, this one is great to allow you to access some good ammo for your rifle early on. Finally, the last crafting option at the workbench level 2 that I like during the mid game is the AK-74M, crafted using 1 weapon parts and a polymer AK stock and handguard. Weapon parts are more common to find in this patch, so this is a pretty good way to start building some AKs for under 10,000 rubles each. Next up, we'll be moving on to the lavatory, which oddly enough is apparently one of our PMC's favorite places to craft complex items. The lavatory starts with almost no crafting recipes, which makes it seem less useful, but at level 2 and above, it actually has some of the best options in the game to make consistent money and help with your other hideout upgrades. Starting at level 1, the only real useful option is the ability to make filters out of 1 gas mask. This is really only useful for the VSS trade at proper level 2, but that is a very good trade, and this is a good way to get the filters required for it. At level 2, the lavatory becomes one of my favorite modules for crafting because of the consistent value it provides from simple recipes. First, you can make 2 corrugated hoses using 1 tube, 3 wires, and 3 blue tape. Hoses are one of the most useful items in hideout upgrades, and are also quite rare to find in raid. Because of this, they're very valuable in the early to mid game, and crafting them not only saves you money, but you can flip them on the market for pretty huge profits, especially if you find some of the items in raid and craft the wires needed using power cords at the workbench. Next up, we have in my opinion the best crafting option in the entire mid game, the magazine case for 2 blue gas cans, metal cutting scissors, 3 bolts, and 3 screw nuts. The magazine case is useful on its own to save space and organize your stash, but it also sells for over 300,000 rubles to therapists or on the flea market, and the components for it are not very hard to find in raid or simply buy on the market at a decent price. I use the mag case to spin big profits off the gas I use to craft other items in a repeating loop. Get 2 gas cans, install them in the generator, then go raid while they drain and craft items. During that time, try and loot some screw nuts and bolts. Then when the gas is empty, craft up a magazine case and sell it for 300k. This lets you profit multiple times from your fuel, and this is why I treasure every blue gas can that I can find. Like the workbench, the lavatory level 2 has some good items to craft for quest completions as well, notably for Peacekeeper's Spa Tour quest line. First, you can craft 100ml WD-40 using the larger WD-40 cans and metal cutting scissors. This can be useful for when you need them for Peacekeeper, but get frustrated by how hard they can be to find sometimes. Next, you can craft Clean Wiper using vodka and shampoo, and bleach using soap, alkali, and sodium. Both of these items are needed for Peacekeeper quests and are kind of rare, so I like to craft them and save myself some trouble with RNGesus. While the recipes available in the early game are pretty slim, the med station is still very useful, since it lets you access meds much earlier than Therapist sells them. First up at level 1 we have the Salawa, which can be crafted with 1 painkiller, a splint, and 1 bandage. This one is amazing for completing the first Therapist quest, and the Salawa is a great first aid kit which can be crafted very cheap with this recipe, so you never have to waste money on AI2s and bandages. Next up, at level 2 you can start crafting IFAKs at the med station, using 2 piles of meds and 2 army bandages. Army bandages are very common to find and pretty cheap from Therapists, so as long as you can get a hold of 2 piles of meds, you can craft cheap IFAKs. Personally, I think the IFAK is the best med kit without challenge. It's space efficient, cost efficient if you craft it, and it heals bleeding. I love it, and I swear by this crafting recipe. Finally, you can craft the piles of meds you need for this one using 1 AI2, a bandage, and augmentin pills. These items are usually cheap to get a hold of, so this can help you get the meds that you need to craft IFAKs. Finally, to finish off this video, I want to quickly go over the nutrition station, which has 2 recipes I think are useful to know about even if you don't use them all the time. First, you can craft the Wilston cigarettes you need for the mechanic quest using a pack of tea and some cheap Apollon cigarettes. Wilstons are notoriously hard to come by, and this gets them to you with the found in raid tag that you need for the quest. Next up, you can use the nutrition station to craft sugar, requiring 2 Alyonka chocolate bars for 1 pack of sugar. In the early game, sugar seems kind of worthless, but in the end game, it's needed for one of the most profitable crafting recipes in the entire game. Because of this, I hoard every Alyonka bar and pack of sugar I find, so that at endgame, I can coast along on free moonshine money for as long as possible. Well, that about covers it for the crafting recipes that I wanted to go over in this video. I've just nicely got my hideout upgraded to level 2 across the board, and I'll definitely be putting out a second part to this video in the near future once I get the whole hideout upgraded to level 3 all around. Hopefully you found this info useful. There's a lot of different crafting options, and it can be hard to pinpoint exactly which ones are the most useful if you don't have a pretty good idea of what individual things each item is used for, like quests and other crafting recipes. In any case, I hope you can use this info to make good progress, good profit, and see for yourself how useful the hideout really is. I'll be streaming more Escape from Tarkov on Twitch, and it'd be great to have you drop by the stream, so I'll link that in the description. You can also find links to my Twitter and Discord server, as well as my Patreon page for anyone interested in supporting the channel. Thanks for checking out the video. As always, feel free to leave any comments, corrections, or suggestions down below, and until next time, stay safe in Tarkov City.